Welcome along to the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast. We're back previewing a busy Premier League weekend after a busy midweek in the Premier League. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, and joined by Mark O'Haire and Adrian Clarke. Plenty to get to in terms of the title race, midweek results, that sort of thing. We'll cover them as we cover some big games in the Premier League. And the four games we picked out, we pick out four marquee games every week. Usually the guys pick one each, and I pick the two main games. Spurs, Chelsea, Everton, Liverpool, those two main games. And we're looking at Fulham, Arsenal, and Leicester versus Brighton. Before we get going, insights.matchbook.com if you want a full recap of all the guys' picks. I know they're very popular throughout the weekend for people just logging on, getting a reminder of picks. Check that out and like and subscribe or follow wherever you're watching or listening. Let's start with Tottenham versus Chelsea. Primetime game is Sunday, 4:30. Spurs, we are recording this just to let you know before Thursday night's game away to Bournemouth. Can't see too much changing in the prices outside of injuries, but bear that in mind. Spurs 3.0, Chelsea 238. The draw is 3.9. Both teams to score yes is 141. The agent handicap line sees Spurs get a quarter goal head start at 1.9. 3.5 is the total. Mark, kick us off here. This is a game that, you know, reminds us of the old clashes between Chelsea Spurs, no less because Anthony Taylor, as far as I'm aware, is going to be refereeing this game. So I saw a great tweet just saying, let's run it back, Taylor. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, he's been quite a controversial appointment, actually. The last time he did this game was August 2022. You might remember that 2-2 game. It was the one when Conte and Tuchel had that sort of weird handshake sort of scrap episode at full time. The game where Taylor and VAR decided against giving a penalty for Romero pulling Cucurella's hair, and Kane went on to score from the resulting corner as well. So plenty of controversy on his appointment for this game. I'll get to that shortly. But in terms of the match itself, I did find this quite tricky to unpack in all honesty, largely because I just don't know what Tottenham Hotspur to expect. 6 wins and 5 defeats in the Premier League, losing at home to Ipswich, smashing Man City away. Just a peculiar side. And, I looked back through the Premier League records, and you have to go back a full year for the last time Spurs won 3 or more Premier League matches on the spin. They are that inconsistent, but we know they are capable. We also know they're very capable of chucking it in as well. So they've got a very difficult game on Thursday night, I think, away at Bournemouth too. An energy-sapping game, I would say, against a very intense Bournemouth side. So they have the day less rest coming into this game, but even still, seeing them around 2-1, 3.0 to win this, it did surprise me because their data has been pretty good for the most part. Obviously, there are issues in the Spurs team, not just with inconsistency, but Vicario, Bentancur, Van der Ven, all missing 3 key players in that first 11. Whereas Chelsea had a bit of breezy Wednesday evening with the early goal, the red card as well, contributing to a very comfortable win away at Southampton on the south coast. They get the extra day's rest as well. And they have impressed for the most part this season, the only defeats being against Man City on match day 1 and at Anfield under Maresca. So they have only won once away, top half teams. I think that is right. But for the most part, they've been pretty good. And it is a fixture they tend to come to the party in. Just 1 defeat in 11 Premier League meetings with Spurs as well. 7 league wins in the last 8 trips to Tottenham as well. So I can understand why Chelsea are favourites, but slightly uneasy about backing them at those kind of prices. What I do expect is goals, as we always do with Spurs and even Chelsea too. Both teams to score has copped in 5 of Spurs' 7 home games, 10 of Chelsea's 14 overall. Each team has only kept 3 clean sheets this season, but they have scored in 24 of their 27 league meetings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to package both teams to score together with under 69.5 booking points, which comes in at, 183? Around about that price. And I think that's quite an appealing play, just taking the result out of the equation, supporting goals and supporting a lack of cards. And I mentioned Taylor being quite a controversial appointment. He's such an odd character, especially this season, in terms of his sort of propensity to give cards. So he was involved in that extraordinary 14-card tally when Bournemouth played Chelsea back in September. He also gave 9 in Southampton versus Leicester. He's actually given fewer than 6 in each of his last 10 league games. Almost a response to those early card counts. Perhaps he's been told to tone it down a little bit. But yeah, these matches have often been quite low card matches too. Quite surprising, actually. 5-0-2-3-3-1-5-5-0-2. And yeah, it's not been often this match has kind of escalated into something really silly in terms of, 7 cards or more. So I'm prepared to kind of oppose a really high card count, a card line, which it is, and kind of just get goals on side here. So, we can have 0 to 6 cards here. Obviously, if a red card is distributed, then that bumps the booking points tally up a little bit. But ultimately, Spurs haven't been involved in that many card-heavy games so far this season. Perhaps they'll raise the game on Sunday. Who knows? But quite happy to support goals and the lack of cards.
Okay, both teams to score and the lack of cards is under 69.5 booking points. That's 183 using the matchbook bet builder. Adrian, Chelsea and Maresca has said that he expects his side to dominate the Premier League over the next 5 to 10 years. What can they achieve this season? I thought they were very impressive throughout away to Southampton.
Yeah, what a bold statement that was from Maresca. Not sure I agree. Yes, he's up against some pretty good big clubs, some top sides. I get where he's coming from. They're young and they should in theory get better. But yeah, let's see on that. Let's hold fire. But yeah, in the here and now, really good. Really good. It's hard to find too many faults with Chelsea. I think Maresca's doing an outstanding job. We've praised him up for that. Away from home, reliable. 5 wins, 1 draw, 1 defeat. Really confident when they went going to Leicester recently, and obviously Southampton. 2 easier games than Spurs away, but they dominated those games. They've got good tools, haven't they, to play away, especially against a team like Spurs, who are obviously missing key players, but we know they'll keep a pretty high line, and we know they'll be expansive and attack-minded under Postecoglou. Well, Jackson revels in space, doesn't he? That he can run in behind into. They've got flyers out wide as well. All of the wingers are pretty quick. Maybe Sancho not lightning, but the other guys are rapid and they'll go, very vertical. And I think they're tailor-made to maybe hurt Tottenham. Obviously, they won 4-1 here in that. It's just a crazy game. Absolute classic, wasn't it, last season, where Spurs basically just ran out of players. But yeah, I think Chelsea can go there and get another good result. They have won 4 of their last 5 at Spurs, and traditionally they hold the whip hand against them. So yeah, I'm strong, quite strong on Chelsea. Obviously, Spurs, more than capable on home turf of sweeping most teams away. But I just don't know. I mean, they didn't play well against Fulham, did they? Kind of lucky to get a draw there. And this is a stat that really is so Spursy in its nature. I've got to tell you this one. Spurs have not gone more than 2 league games this season before losing. They've not gone 3 unbeaten at any stage this season in the Premier League. They won at City. They drew with Fulham. So they're due a defeat. That's my logic here. But I'm going to go Chelsea double chance. Not going to go all in on it because Spurs at home could absolutely draw this game. Of course they can. I'm going to pair it with over 2.5 goals. So similar to Mark, just over 2.5 rather than both teams to score. 9 of Spurs' 13 games have gone over 2.5 goals this season. No clean sheet in their last 6 at home. So, Chelsea have got a great chance of scoring here. And 5 of Chelsea's last 7 games have also gone over 2.5 goals. They're really having fun at the moment, Chelsea. And I think I cannot see anything other than a really entertaining game here with Chelsea not losing. So that's my pick. Chelsea double chance, over 2.5. It comes in at 2.1.
Okay, 2.1, the selection there. That's Chelsea double chance and over 2.5. Shout out to your jumper there, Adrian, getting a lot of love in the YouTube comments. This is going to be our £10 bet builder podcast treble. So let's lock in. We're going to do a bit of Adrian Chelsea double chance and go with Mark's both teams to scoring under 69.5 booking points. Comes out at 2.5. You just build this bet yourself on the Matchbook Bet Builder. Put it on it and you get a free bet up to £10 if it loses. That'll be in your account on Monday morning. Now let's move back in time to Saturday lunchtime, and this is a massive game. It already was, but off the back of midweek results, it gets a little bit more intriguing. Everton 8.0 shots to Liverpool, who are 146. The draw is available at 5.1. Both teams to score yes is 193 and no is 204. Everton getting a 1.25 goal head start at 197 on the Asian handicap line if you want to play there, and the total for this one currently stands at 2.5 overs at 1.7. Mark, we might start with you again on this one and just focus on the midweek results. I mean, Wolves going to Goodison Park, losing 4-0. Liverpool off the back of 3-3. There's just a little bit more on this game. Has the price moved much on Everton in the last 24 hours?
Yeah, slightly. When I did my notes on Wednesday, Everton was 7.4. They're now 8.0. So the market's not got a huge amount of faith in the Toffees. In what is going to be quite a historic game, quite an emotional game, I think, for the Everton faithful. The last Merseyside derby at Goodison Park, and irrespective of how Everton have been performing of late, you normally expect a hostile atmosphere for Liverpool, big support for the home side, and a raising of standards from Everton, who, often come into this game as the lesser of the two lights by quite a distance, but do tend to raise those standards and be capable of picking up points or better against Liverpool at Goodison Park. They've now only lost twice in the last 12 when hosting Liverpool in the Premier League. 9 of those games did end in draws, 5 of which were goalless. But it's difficult to ignore those trends, really, because Everton have been a bigger price or a similar price in each of the last 3 games at home to Liverpool in the Premier League. So they've still been capable of grinding out some good results, including beating Liverpool here last season. But the majority of those matches have tended to be quite low scoring. 8 of the last 10 at Goodison have gone under 3.5 goals. I think that's a real runner again this weekend. Before the midweek, Everton and Liverpool were 5th and 6th lowest in terms of goals per game averages in the Premier League this season. I'm not going to read too much into Everton's last 2 games, because the 4-0 defeat at United wasn't a 4-0 defeat, and the 4-0 win against Wolves wasn't a 4-0 win either. 2 own goals from set pieces and a Ashley Young, free kick, which isn't going to sort of be in the end of season highlights either. So, and then Liverpool, the 3-3 draw. I thought against Newcastle there was a potential, a couple of signs of fatigue from the Reds. This will be their 5th game in 14 games, 14 days, I think it is. And Arne Slot did obviously try and rest and rotate a couple of players, but they didn't look quite as convincing as perhaps they have been. And I think that's been a case you can level at Liverpool away from Anfield. Didn't completely convince in times against Southampton, away at Palace or Wolves either. So I do think Everton, considering the significance of this game, will believe they can keep it competitive and will be capable of keeping it competitive. So I actually was considering Everton plus 1.5 on the Asian handicap originally. I still think that has got legs to it. Liverpool needing to win by 2 or more goals for that bet not to make money. Only 3 sides have gone to Goodison in the last year and beaten them by a 2-goal margin or better. And as history says, they do tend to keep things quite close against the Reds. Obviously, Liverpool coming off the back of that Wednesday night taxing trip to Newcastle, this game being away from home in the early kickoff on Saturday. Again, fatigue could play a part. But the bet that does get me excited here, actually, is going back to the goals angle, which is under 3.5 goals, but partnering it with over 39.5 booking points. We're getting odds against on this. I've already made the case for unders, but cards-wise, 7 of the last 9 head-to-head between these 2 teams have featured 4 cards or more. 4 of the last 5 meetings at Goodison have seen both sides collect multiple cards. And Michael Oliver is the referee, and he's dished out 4 or more cards in 9 of 12 league games this season. He's done this game twice before. The last Merseyside derby, he gave 75 booking points. His only previous experience to this game before that was April 2018. The game ended 0-0. It went under the card line, but the reason for that is Liverpool was sandwiched between their Champions League ties against Man City. Klopp rang the changes. The game ended 0-0. Nothing happened, basically. So I'm happy to sort of overlook that and look more towards what Michael Oliver is doing this year, and obviously the significance of this match and the magnitude for both teams. So, under 3.5 goals and over 39.5 booking points at odds against, I think is a really good bet here.
Okay, that's Everton Liverpool early kickoff under 3.5 goals, but combine it with over 39.5 booking points, you get above even money 215. Adrian, over to you on this one. I know you're at the Arsenal game, so maybe just caught the highlights of Liverpool. I was a tad surprised that Trent got rested, maybe because if he gets injured, they're essentially no right back cover at the moment. But I was surprised he came on, made a difference. I guess if they win to on Saturday lunchtime, I guess it justifies the rotation that I guess Arne Slot feels he has to do going into a busy Christmas period.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see, won't we? It was a surprising game to rest him for. It's tough, isn't it? Newcastle away, but obviously came on and made an impact. But yeah, I haven't really seen enough of the game to sort of comment too much. Other than to say that I'm sure there'll be a reaction in terms of the fact that they conceded 3 goals. They've been really solid, haven't they, all season, Liverpool? But that will have stung them, stung Slot in particular So yeah, they'll be looking to restore sort of usual service at Goodison Park. I think it's going to be quite a competitive game, actually. Everton always seem to make it competitive at home in the Merseyside derby. As Mark pointed out, the last one at Goodison Park, they absolutely will not want to lose this one. And on the back of beating Wolves, albeit, some of the goals, not amazing, that they will feel better about themselves, won't they? So I give them a chance. That Everton handicap is interesting. I'm going to go both teams to score no, though. I'm going to oppose goals here. 8 of the last 10 Merseyside derbies have seen both teams to score no land. It's happened in each of the last 5 as well. It's it's a game of 1-0s and 2-0s really in recent history, and across the season as a whole. Obviously, you can't trust Everton to score. I know they got 4 against Wolves, but they failed to score in half their games this season, Everton, and up against, a brilliant Liverpool side that have been outstanding. I think it's going to be quite tough for them to score. Liverpool, for what it's worth, have kept clean sheets in half of their games, and, up against a sort of, shot-shy Everton, they'll back themselves to maybe keep that clean sheet. Both teams to score no has landed as a consequence mainly of the stats. It's landed in 9 of 14 games for Everton this season. And for Liverpool, because they're so solid, both teams to score no has landed in 8 of 14 of their games as well. So, yeah, look, if this finishes 0-0 or 1-0 either way or 2-0 either way, I will not be surprised at all. I think Liverpool can go there and keep a clean sheet. I do. I don't expect them to slip up. But yeah, rather than sort of nailing my colours to the mast for the Reds or the Blues, I'm just gonna say both. One of them will draw a blank at least. It comes in at quite a nice price of 2.02, so pretty much even.
Okay, yeah. So both teams are scoring no, 2.02 the section for Adrian. I'm going to lean towards Mark. Just good argument there, and maybe perhaps a cagey game, but a bit feisty there as well, and good atmosphere and Goodison. Let's go under 3.5 goals, over 39.5 booking points. You can, of course, do that on Matchbook. Just go to the Bet Builder option on Everton Liverpool. You will get 2.15. Now let's move on to the game before Spurs versus Chelsea. This is Fulham versus Arsenal. Take a look at the betting we currently have on Matchbook.com. Fulham 6.0 playing tonight. Of course, Arsenal 163. The draw is 4.4. Both teams score yes is 186 favoured in that market. The Asian handicap line sees Fulham get a 1-goal head start at 1.9, and the total for this game stands at 2.5. So, Adrian, you watched Arsenal last night. I thought it was a different challenge to the Manchester United setup. Defensively enough, were very solid, and it took those set pieces, so little minute details to break them down. Is it going to be a different sort of game this weekend at Craven Cottage against Fulham, who have, of course, a day's less rest, which might prove something towards the end of the game?
Yeah, it's definitely not ideal, is it, for Fulham to have 1 day less rest? It was a strange game, really. The Arsenal Man United. I thought Arsenal were very watchful in the first half, weren't pressing like they usually do, and it's just really flat, wasn't it, in the first half? But all it took was to go up a gear, and it was enough to comfortably see off Manchester United. Yeah, 2 set piece goals, but deserved the win. Absolutely. There's a part of me that thought, should really have created more in open play, but you have to cast your mind back to the Sporting game, the West Ham game, Forest game. Arsenal are much better than they were earlier on in the season in open play as well. I think it will be a more open game. Fulham attack every match, don't they? Okay, they might be a bit more fatigued after the game tonight on Thursday, but I think they'll go for it. They like to bloody, big noses. They did it last year, didn't they? Beating Arsenal. So there's a bit of payback. And if Gabriel and Calafiori or one of them are missing again, then they might smell a little bit of blood. So yeah, I think Fulham will attack it. They have scored in their last 12 matches, so that's not taken into account this Brighton game, but scored in the last 12, and they've scored in every home game. So can they score against Arsenal? Yeah, I think they can. Arsenal have had less clean sheet wins on the road, haven't they, lately? They've actually conceded in each of the last 5 away games in the Premier League. They also conceded, of course, Arsenal in Portugal against Sporting. So, Yeah, on the road, not been as solid as Arsenal were. I'm looking at this as almost a price-based selection because Arsenal 1.61. I can't tip that up. But if you pair it with both teams to score, and the stats that I've just read out would indicate that Fulham have got a good chance to score, and surely you would expect Arsenal to score at least one at Craven Cottage, if not, well, two, I think, two or more. It bumps the price up from 1.61 to 3.4, and I like that. I think that's a good shout. I would expect Arsenal to win the game. They're on a good run. They're trying to chase down Liverpool, and they've got that extra day's rest. A couple of players probably going to come back in for the game. I think they will have too much for Fulham ultimately. Fulham did, remember, lose at home to Villa and Wolves recently, so they're not infallible on their own patch. I expect Arsenal to win, but I wouldn't say it's going to be a grind. I'll give Fulham a chance of scoring. So, yeah, Arsenal, both teams to score 3.4.
Okay, yeah, could look a massive price if you do fancy Arsenal to win, but Fulham to go a bit attack-minded and make it difficult. Mark, very interested in your selection here because by all intents and purposes, Arsenal have seemed to get their mojo back a little bit, and Fulham, while having a great start to the season, maybe, just maybe, might be regressing back to what might be their average. But you're going to side with them on the Asian handicap here.
It's not a strong play from me,
Okay.
I have to be honest. But I did think Fulham +1 on the Asian handicap was worth the consideration. As you guys have said, they took 4 points off Arsenal last season, beat them at the Cottage on New Year's Eve, a game that contributed to Arsenal missing out on the title. Now, Fulham were Arsenal's equals that day, and I think they've been excellent against the big guns this season. The better side at Spurs last weekend, really good at Old Trafford on match day 1, outstanding away at Man City when they really should have won, let alone lost. And yeah, look, Arsenal have clicked back into gear since Ødegaard's return, and Saka was given a breather, and I definitely don't want to oppose them lightly. This is a team who's won 62% of their away games since the start of last season in the Premier League, losing just 5 times and 26 on their travels. But I think Fulham have the tools to score and cause problems, and therefore I think the +1 start at home as an underdog is not bad. Arsenal have won by a 2-goal margin in only 8 of 26 away games since the start of last season. So in 70% of those matches, we'd have earned a push at worst. And look, Arsenal have had a very difficult schedule this season, domestically and in Europe. And we have to wait on team news until Sunday, but there's a potential again for Gabriel, Calafiori, and Ben White to be missing. So that's 3 of your first choice back 4. Compare and contrast with Fulham, Lukic will be back from a ban. It will help stiffen up the midfield. And Fulham have proven very, very capable. They've won the expected goals battle in 9 of 13 league games this season. They're inside the top 6 for both expected points and expected goals ratio, just like Arsenal. It just feels like a bit of an awkward one for Arsenal. So can they win this game by 2 goals or more? Absolutely, they can. But as Adrian says, Fulham have scored in the last 12 at the time of recording. They've also scored in every home game. And if they do score here, Arsenal need at least 3 goals for this bet to lose. And again, we know they're more than capable of doing so, but happy to sort of take a chance, but perhaps they might trip up at Craven Cottage.
Okay, Mark's selection, Fulham +1 on the Asian handicap line. But we'll take a swinger on the podcast at Arsenal, both teams to score 3.4. I felt like, I don't know if you've seen this Garrett Crooks meme or not, but when he's nodding and it looks like he's just not listening, that was me a bit with Mark with Fulham and +1 goal, knowing full well I was always going Arsenal and both teams to score 3.4. But I did of course take in Mark's argument into consideration, perhaps for the Fulham goal side of things. Let's move on to the final game here. Another team in action tonight, so bear that in mind if you're listening Friday onwards. But Leicester 4.8, Brighton that are playing tonight 178. The draw is 4.1. Both teams to score, yes, 162. Leicester get a 3/4 goal head start, and the total for this game currently stands at 3.5, but unders is heavily favoured at 1.6. So yeah, Mark, what did you make of Leicester West Ham? Because I managed to catch most of this game, and Leicester obviously got the early goals, so I guess that exaggerated how much they sat back. But in some ways, you can look at that West Ham couldn't break them down. In other ways, Leicester didn't manage. It didn't feel like a 3-0 win. However, they can carry that momentum into this weekend.
What did I make of it? Not a huge amount really for Leicester. Now, Vinny's story was in the stands for the defeat at Brentford. He only had 3 days to work with his players before that game against West Ham, and he'll be thrilled with the outcome. But I think the process and the balance of play didn't really reflect the final score, 3-1 in Leicester's favour. West Ham were absolutely dreadful, but they still had 31 shots at the King Power. Really, really profligate in the final third, but dreadful defensively, and Leicester exposed that. And fair play, they got the points on the board. But to concede over 30 shots at home to a side on the verge of sacking their manager is not a good look, irrespective of the final score. And that's been a common occurrence for Leicester, which is something that I'm not convinced Ruud van Nistelrooy will be capable of sort of overhauling and overturning. Judging by his time at PSV, he's not the kind of coach to organise a defence or take a pragmatic approach, which is not what Leicester wanted anyway. They wanted a change of approach from Steve Cooper, but it does make me a little bit concerned about their prospects in staying up. They've now faced at least 15 shots in 6 of their 7 home league games this season. And, repeat that against Brighton, and you're not going to get away with 3-1 wins week in, week out, playing in that style and that manner. So, Brighton, I think, have gone along very, very nicely. Surprised by their only defeats this season under Fabian Hertzler, considering his age, came at Anfield and Stamford Bridge. He's not doing too badly. There's little to be really negative about Brighton, I think, this season. They've been pretty good for the most part, but if you could pick holes in them at all, probably their tendency to fade in the second half of games. They've started very strongly, and we saw that against Southampton last Friday night. Took the lead, weren't able to hold on to it, and they've led at the break in 8 of 13 games this season prior to Thursday night. No side has led more often at halftime than Brighton. They'd be 3rd on the halftime rankings, but they're 11th in terms of their second half process, winning the second half just 4 times. So we've seen them drop points at home to Saints, Wolves, Forest, did so as well away at Liverpool and Chelsea too. So the fact that they don't keep consistent clean sheets always concerns me when looking at a Brighton-based bet, especially when they're odds on away from home, albeit at Leicester. So the solution for me is to back Brighton double chance on both teams to score. It's a ploy I sort of took when Chelsea came here a couple of weeks back. As I say, they've lost just twice in the Premier League under Hertzler, Liverpool and Chelsea. But we have seen both teams to score bank in 12 of Leicester's 14 games, 10 of Brighton's 13. And these two combined have actually scored in 25 of their 27 collective Premier League games this season. So quite happy to support goals and Brighton not to lose at 183.
Okay, Brighton double chance and both teams to score 183. Adrian, I'll let you know this secret. Mark was basically put in the wrong bet initially when he went onto the sheet. What I'm basically saying is he's copied a lot of your homework here for Brighton double chance.
I've got it here because I copy and pasted the sheet earlier on, and Mark had already put his bets in. And I don't normally like to look at them, but obviously I couldn't help it this time. And it says, a different bet over 2.5 for both teams to score. So he has blatantly copied me. What can I say? What can I add? I think I've said he's pretty much said everything that I would have said. Brighton did win at Everton. They won at Bournemouth. They won at Newcastle. Haven't lost to anyone outside the top 2. Here's one. Leicester have only got 1 point from a possible 24 versus the top 12. There you go. That's a negative for Leicester. I think we're quite lucky, weren't they, against West Ham United, and they wouldn't get away with it against Brighton. Welbeck's playing brilliantly. Joao Pedro, excellent. Jorginho Ruter looks a Premier League player. Mitoma, I love. So all those guys I think could have a field day at the King Power. I think he's got a lot of work to do, Ruud van Nistelrooy, to keep them up. I think he's got a chance, the best of the 3 promoted teams, but this is a tough game, and unless they make significant strides in their off the ball work and maybe buy 2 new centre backs between now and kickoff, which they're not allowed to do, then I would fancy Brighton here. So Brighton double chance. Both teams score 1.83. Brighton have scored in their last 9 games. They're going to score here, and Leicester seem to score in every game. The only one they didn't score in, Ruud van Nistelrooy was managing the other mob, Manchester United. I think both teams will score. It feels strong, as does either a draw or a Brighton win. So 1.83. I feel very confident about that one.
Okay, and Mark does as well. So let's lock that in. Brighton double chance and both teams to score 183. Insights.matchup.com if you want to log on and have a full recap of these bets that will be available from Thursday afternoon. Mark, you've 3 bets here and any other bets, so I might just let you take the lead and race through them. But a lot of goals, there's 3 different types of bets here, so take it away, each one.
Yeah, sure. We'll start in Germany, the second tier, Kaiserslautern against Karlsruhe, third against fifth. My initial angle here was to support goals, overs and BTTS, but I'm actually just going to focus on Kaiserslautern here to score over 1.5 goals at 1.91. If there is 3 goals or more in this game, you expect Kaiserslautern to do the heavy lifting. They've scored 2 goals or more in 9 of 14 overall this season, including all 6 of their home games. They've actually scored 3 goals or more in 3 of those 6 home games, and they average 1.81 non-penalty expected goals at home so far this season. The home fixtures have been pretty bonkers in terms of goals, but I expect them to score at least twice here, as they tend to do. They're playing a Karlsruhe side who were top of the table a few weeks back, but they've hit a sticky spell, 3 defeats in 5. They've conceded multiple goals in 4 of those 5. They've also now conceded multiple goals in 9 of 14 overall, including 4 of their 5 trips to the top 13. But the final ingredient is just the scheduling. Karlsruhe were involved in TFB Pokal action on Wednesday night. They hosted Bundesliga outfit Augsburg at home. They were leading until 3 minutes into stoppage time of extra time, conceded, and eventually lost on penalties. So that was Wednesday night. This game is taking place at 1 p.m. local time on Saturday. Quick turnaround, and whilst regionally it's not a far trip from Karlsruhe to Kaiserslautern, Kaiserslautern have had their feet up all week preparing for this. So quite happy to back them to score multiple goals, over 1.5 goals at 191. Then to Portugal, the BTTS hit rate in the Portuguese top flight is just 38%, so pretty low compared to normal major European leagues. But Boa Vista and Farense are 2 of the sort of sides who have been big contributors to BTTS no occurring more often than not in this division, because both are just struggling to score goals. Boa Vista have scored 7 in 12, Farense 6 in 12. But what makes my angle of both teams to score no at 1.8 even more appealing is their respective home and away records. So Boa Vista have yet to score in 5 home league games. They've now fired blanks in 8 of 12 overall this season. Farense have scored just 2 in 7 away. They failed to score in half of their overall matches. BTTS in just 4 of those 12. It's also landed in just 3 of Boa Vista's 12. So combine the 2 teams together, BTTS no landing in 17 of 24. That's 71%. Both sides in the bottom 6 for all the relative sort of goal-based metrics and attacking metrics too. So 1.8 on both teams to score no at Boa Vista. And then finally, Austria. Austria Vienna are second, and they're hosting rock bottom Altac. The home win alongside under 4.5 goals is 195, a really nice price there. Austria Vienna have won 7 on the spin. They've posted 6 wins from 7 unbeaten games at home. The only game they failed to win was against Sturm Graz, who are top of the table. They've scored at least twice in 6 of those 7, and they have the best defence in the division too. And they're playing the worst attack in the division. Altac, rock bottom, winless since August. A 12-game sequence that's included 9 defeats. They've picked up 1 point from 6 away, scored just 3 times on their travels. They did pinch a point off Sturm Graz last weekend, a 1-1 home draw against the table toppers, but they were totally outplayed in that match. Lost the shot count 17-6. Difficult to make a case for them repeating that feat this weekend. So back Austria Vienna to win and under 4.5 goals. Only 4 of their combined 30 games have featured 4 goals or more, and none of those 30 games have featured 5 goals or more. So we're getting close to evens on the home win alongside under 4.5 goals.
Okay, there's 3 any other bets there recapped on Matchbook Insight. And if you wanted an insight into Mark's knowledge, not just on Premier League football, but throughout Europe and the world, that was those last 3 minutes. Very impressive stuff there. Adrian, Leeds versus Derby. Leeds in the title race, of course, but can't afford too many other slip-ups. They host Derby this weekend.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm at this game. Looking forward to it. I do expect Leeds to come out on top. 6 of Leeds' 9 home matches at Ellen Road have been 1-0, and that's my pick here. Leeds and both teams to score no. It comes out better on the right side of evens at 2.04. 6 of 9 is a very, very good ratio. And I can tell you what, there's a lot of opponents that have turned up at Leeds this season and they've barely had a shot, let alone scored a goal. They faced the fewest shots on home turf. Leeds, they've got the lowest XG against at home as well. Across their 9 games, their XGA is 4.53 goals. So it's really 0.5 per game for Leeds United. Derby are good fighters. They're doing all right, but they're really picking up most of their points on home turf. They've got 1 win in 9 as well. A lot of drawn games. They were beaten to 0 at Sheffield United, at Sunderland. 2 of the other real tough games in the Championship away from home. Ellen Road is probably the hardest. You've got to fancy Leeds, who are so short, obviously, for obvious reasons. But if you think they'll win to 0, they're backable at 2.04, which certainly piqued my interest.
Okay, yeah.
My second pick.
Go on, fire away there.
Yeah, go on.
Burton at Wrexham.
My second pick is in League One. Burton against Wrexham. Wrexham flying high still. This is an under shout, under 2.5 goals, 1.89. Recent form, both teams have been tight at the back and not exactly prolific going forward. The last 8 games, Wrexham matches have averaged 1.5 goals. The last 8 Burton games have averaged 2 goals. So 6 clean sheets for Wrexham. They're turning into 1-0 FC, really, Wrexham at the moment, giving very little away. And they should win. There should be another really 1 or 2-0 win, I would imagine, at Burton Albion, who have been boosted. I think they beat Peterborough United 1-0 away in midweek. But of course, they were dumped out of the FA Cup on pens by Tamworth. Missed out on that draw at home to Spurs. Burton are struggling big time. They're not scoring goals. But at the back, they've improved massively. They were leaking a lot earlier in the season. The manager's gone. There's an interim guy in charge. And across the last 6 games, Burton have only let in 5 goals, which is pretty good for a team at the wrong end of the table. So I think they can make it competitive. They can keep Wrexham, make Wrexham work for this. But rather than bet on the outcome, I'm just going to go under 1.89.
Okay, under 2.5 goals, 189 Burton, Wrexham, and Leeds, and both teams to score no versus Derby, the 2 EFL selections for Adrian. Let's move on to long shots section. Start with you, Mark. It's the Championship, West Brom versus Sheffield United. Sheffield United doing fantastic this season, top of the league, versus a West Brom side whose home goals we picked out and said was an issue in scoring goals. Of course, that game that we bet on ended up finishing 2-2, but this is the next home game, obviously, after a couple of low scoring away games since. West Brom versus Sheffield United. You want the 0-0 and the 1-1 on side here.
Yeah, so I mean, both teams to score no in this game would have been added to my any other business segment if I hadn't already put 3 selections from Europe in. I cannot see this game escalating into another sort of 2-2 shootout at the Hawthorns. West Brom under a bit of pressure, or Carlos Corberán is at the minute. His team were booed off last weekend after a draw at Preston. Mainly due to frustration from supporters. They've won just once in the last 12 championship games. They slipped outside of the top 6. But that match was incredibly the 9th game in the last 10 that has ended in a draw. And I think fans are just getting a bit fed up with the style of play. Corberán is very pragmatic, very defensively minded. They don't have a huge amount of inspiration in the final third. It does make them very awkward, very difficult to beat opponents, especially at the Hawthorns. Just 5 home league defeats since the start of last season. 18 clean sheets in that 31 game sample as well. Quite impressive in that regard. And I think they'll give Sheffield United a good game. The Blades, who are top of the table, have built their campaign largely on that formidable record at Bramall Lane. QPR still the only team to avoid defeat and even score a goal at Sheffield United this season. They are less reliable on the road, failed to win 5 of 9 on their travels. They're ranked as low as 12th on expected points away from home. And 16 teams have generated a better XG return on their travels than Sheffield United. What they are good at, though, is very similar to West Brom, just being functional and capable of grinding out results, even when they're not playing too well. So a lot of similarities, I think, between these 2 teams. They've combined to keep 21 clean sheets this season in a 36 league game sample. 22 of those 38 games have seen both teams to score no payout, which is 61%. That's obviously going to be a big runner again, with it winning in 7 of 8 West Brom home games and 6 of Sheffield United's 9 away. But in terms of a long shot, if you are expecting another tight, tense, low-scoring, scrappy affair, then the possibility of the draw has to increase the lower the goal expectation is. So for me, I'll combine draw and under 2.5 goals. As you say, get the 0-0 and the 1-1 correct scores on side at 3-1, 4.0 in decimals.
Okay, let's lock it in. Draw under 2.5 goals. You can find that in the normal matchbook section. That is 4.0. Adrian, onto your long shot here. And Brentford, I mean, if you told them at the start of the season they'd be 9th in the table, what, 3 points off 5th, 6 points off 4th, they'd be absolutely snap your hand off it. And they've always struck me as a team that if they have a setback like Villa away, for example, where they were poor, very poor throughout, they can respond, and they have responded before.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the away record doesn't really compare with the home, does it? For Brentford,
No.
at the G-Tech, really, really impressive. I'm almost surprised. They're underdogs. They do have the best home record in the Premier League this season: 6 wins, 1 draw, no losses. They've averaged 3 goals scored per game as well. Obviously, there's a couple of fives in there, but to score 19 goals, or what? I can't remember exactly what it is right now, but they've scored a lot of goals at home. I think it might be 22 goals they've scored. What I will say as a caveat is that Brentford haven't hosted anyone above 13th yet, which is, so they're quite lucky in terms of the fixtures. They've been winning a lot of high-scoring games at home against teams in the bottom half. So this will be a stiffer test. Both teams to score has landed in all the home games. And you would imagine, considering Newcastle are better than the opponents they've been facing at home, that might be the case again. Brentford overall are the BTTS kings this season. 12 of their 14 games have seen it land. So I like Brentford and both teams to score here against Newcastle. It comes out at 5.0, 4-1. As I said, all the games they score in, all the games the opponents score, 12 or 14 overall. What about Newcastle? Well, 6 of their 7 away games have seen both teams to score land. So not many clean sheets for Eddie House boys on the road. And it's a bit of a mixed bag. They've won 2, they've lost 2, they've drawn 3. I think they'll have to play better than they have been to win at Brentford. So, yeah, it's a long shot. I'm going to go with the Bees. And both teams score at 5.0.
Okay, that's 5.0 and leads lovely into Mark's best bet. Mark, I was sleeping on Brentford's home record a little bit there. I hadn't realised, just looking at the home record here, top of the league, as Adrian said, at home, 6 wins, 1 draw, 22 goals scored, 12 conceded.
That's good.
They're taking on Newcastle, who have that goals in them, and particularly after the 3-3. I mean, it's a game that lends itself to a lot of goals.
Yeah, it does. I mean, Adrian's done all the hard work for me, really, on the both teams to score angle. So I don't really need to go in there. But yeah, I do think that home record, it's a bit of a red herring considering the schedule. They've been favourites to win 6 of those 7 games, bar Palace on the opening weekend. And I am surprised they're outsiders at home to Newcastle, considering Newcastle's dodgy away record, not just this season, but even going back to the start of last year. And I do think they are fragile favourites coming into this game, so couldn't bet anyone off the same selection that Adrian selected in the long shot area there. It's really quite appealing price that. In terms of BTTS, just a few more stats to chuck in. Brentford have seen both teams score in 21 of 26 home league games since the start of last season. That's 80%. They scored in 23 of those 26 and kept only 4 clean sheets. Newcastle, BTTS in 18 of 26 away. In the same sample, 69%. They've scored in 20 of 26 and kept just 3 clean sheets on their travels. So really difficult to dismiss goals. BTTS obviously quite a short price, but just chucking in a card for both sides gets you to 1.75, 1.8 that region. Both Brentford and Newcastle have been booked in 13 of their opening 14 games. Both have also drawn a card from all bar one of their opponents. And Tim Robinson is the referee here. He's done 9 league games this season, averaging 5.56 cards per game. He's hit 4 cards or more in all 9, and booked both teams in all 9 of those fixtures as well. So I think it's a really nice way of just boosting that BTTS price into something more palatable. So yeah, both teams to score and both teams to be carded. Brentford, Newcastle.
1.8 there if you expect an action-packed game with goals and cards. Mark's favourite thing to cheer on, of course, particularly when he's doubling them up. Adrian, best bet time here. I had a quick look at the table in League 2. Grimsby doing far better to Morecambe. They travel away to Morecambe. If you're looking at that table alone, you would say that 264 seems a bit of value. So explain why it's so big, first of all, and why you think it's still value and worth playing.
I don't know why they're 2.64 shots, because they're up against the Morecambe side that have the worst home record in League 2, rock bottom. I think 3 points earned all season on their own patch. So this is a match that Morecambe might be dreading, because Grimsby are fantastic away from home. They've got the 3rd best away record in League 2. They've won 5 of their last 6 away games, Grimsby, and the other one was a draw. So, they are going here, there, and everywhere on the road and winning. So they will really fancy their chances, I think, of going and beating Morecambe in the sort of fish derby across different parts of the different coasts, of course. Look, they've got a perfect record, Grimsby, against the bottom 7 so far this season, home and away. They've won all their games. Morecambe are third bottom. And Grimsby are in the playoff spots. They've climbed really nicely. Morecambe are yet to win on their own patch, as I said. They've got 3 points. That they all came from draws. They will be feeling a little bit nervous. I think they've scored a few more goals of late, Morecambe, but they're still conceding goals. So really, this is price based. I think that Grimsby shouldn't be 2.64 shots to win this game against the team with the worst home record in League One, considering how brilliant they've been on the road. So 2.64 looks great value from Grimsby.
Okay, yeah. Mark, do you want to come in on anything there?
Oh, sorry, no, I was scratching my arm, but I was still giggling about Adrian labelling it the fish derby. That's
fish derby. Yeah.
That's a cracker.
I didn't really know where I was going with it. I just thought, well, they're both fishing towns, I think.
It could take off. Adrian, big couple of days ahead of it. But Grimsby,
no,
no, maybe not. 264 Grimsby value play, and not just best bet material, but Adrian really thinking that's overpriced there. Maybe it is something to do with the expected goal models really feeding into those prices, sometimes overdoing it as well, particularly in the lower leagues. We'll see. Grimsby away, Morecambe 264, Adrian's best bet. My thanks to both Mark and Adrian. We have a busy couple of weeks before we head off for Christmas, so do check out the Matchbook social channels. Make sure you're following us in your podcast feed so you don't miss a podcast, and of course subscribe, and do turn on those notifications on YouTube so you'll see A, when we're live, or B, when the video has been uploaded afterwards. But until then, enjoy the weekend's football. Make sure if you're having a bet, it enhances that enjoyment of the football, but please do so responsibly, and we'll chat to you next week at some point. Bye bye.